Standardization, I think, is a really good way for researchers to make sure that their research results actually have impact in the real world. So it's a fast path to industry adoption of particular results, of showing that your expertise is going out into the real world, puts you on an international stage, and that impact also is really valued both in publications but also by funders. My name is David Lewis. I'm an Associate Professor of Computer Science here in Trinity College, and I'm also an Associate Director of the ADAPT Centre. In the ADAPT Centre, we focus on the AI that sits behind digital content, so sits behind the web interfaces and the mobile phone applications that we're using all the time. And a particularly important part of that is machine translation. The translation industry is a big global industry, around well over 30 billion turnover a year. And machine translation is transforming that industry very rapidly. So we worked in helping the industry adapt to that by including machine translation features into existing standards. Google Translate is really, leading the state of the art in general purpose translation, everyday translation, which I think is great, and it's there available for free. But essentially, Google don't do niches. So that means there's still a lot of space for machine translation to be developed in specific areas around, for example, medical translation or legal translation or governmental or regulatory translation. So, the standardization is important, that it allows those other machine translation vendors to integrate into the market. One example of a project where we got a lot of benefit from standardization was an EU project called Falcon, which was looking at how we can help small IT vendors in the translation market integrate their tools more easily. Okay, so there's a lot of small companies producing innovative tools, but they all tend to work in their own silos. So we worked with 3 companies, one that produced translation tools that translators would use, another one that worked on terminology, which is a very specific part of a linguist's job, and another one that worked with extracting content from somebody's website and sending that off for translation. So we worked with them to enable them to integrate their tools together. They were able then to come up with a federated product with a unified pricing model, and all of that interoperability was predicated on the support we gave them in implementing standards. We were working on existing standards that had been developed in industry for us. So they weren't standards that could be used in a international treaty, for example, or would necessarily be used by governments. They were industry-generated standards. But by actually showing with these companies how they could be implemented and benefit companies in a very short period of time, that enabled us to go to the National Standards Authority of Ireland and promote how we develop this standard into an ISO standard, which is the sort of standard that gets taken up by governments and more at an international level. For us, it was a real validation of those standards, that they could be used by smaller companies, that they could be deployed in the translation industry very quickly. Often when we work on standards, especially as academics, there's sometimes skepticism saying, well, is this really going to work in the market? Can it be adopted by small companies? So by doing this project, we were able to show, yes, it can be. And we did get interest from bodies such as the United Nations and the EU, who fund a lot of translation themselves, but will only use products that adhere to certain international standards. So it helped us, bridge that credibility gap. As a researcher going into the standardization process, you are used to sort of arguing the benefits of your work to your peers, but for standardization, you have to be able to persuade people to reach consensus about something. So those techniques of, how do you flag ideas, how do you collect feedback, how do you reach consensus, those are really useful skills, and we actually try and introduce that more as transferable skills from our learning in standardization and bring that back into the research lab, because they are important. Research is essentially collaborative.